Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction. The talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org, for more info, or you can email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Gloria Eveleigh. We'll be discussing her new book, One Small Word, available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, but more specifically, you guys can go directly to her personal website and purchase the book there. And her website is going to be gloriaeveleigh.com. That's traditional spelling of Gloria, Gloria, Eveleigh, Eveleigh.com. And there, not only will you be able to purchase the book, but you'll actually be able to get more information on the book itself, but also on Gloria. So this way you can garnish a lot more information going directly to her website and stay up to date with the amazing catalog of work that she has under her belt, which we'll discuss later on in the interview. And just so you guys are aware, Gloria was brought to People of Distinction today by some of the best movers in the business. UR Link Publishing. If you have a book that you'd like moved, you got to move it through UR Link. You can find them at urlinkpublishing.com. The book that we're going to be discussing today is, it's heavy in terms of the content matter, right? It's really one of the most fascinating things about it is the subject matter is really something that a lot of people, kind of shy away from, because it is a very heavy subject matter, but the overall message from it is so powerful. And I think it's going to be something that really resonates with so many people. And I don't want to give too much away. I'm going to leave that for Gloria. It's her book. She's done an amazing job of constructing this and bringing this to our table. But it is such a profound book with an amazing message that, again, is almost, in a way, almost therapeutic or cathartic in a way for those of you that'll be able to connect specifically. I know myself, I have known a lot of people that have faced abuse in this way, and the thoughts that this main character goes through and thinks about is so relatable. Right, because a lot of times the victims always have that state of mind, and at the end of the day, and the message really is it's not their fault, right? The biggest thing to always remember is that they are the victim in this situation, and it's understandable on how they formulate that opinion of themselves. But what's amazing is, again, as I stated, it's almost cathartic, it's almost therapeutic, because this is such a wonderful, wonderful narrative that Gloria has instilled for us and constructed for us. And listen, she's going to be able to explain it much better than I ever could, okay? So without further ado, let's get her here on the line with us. Gloria, first and foremost, thank you so much for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we are so excited to have you here to really share this narrative with us. So without further ado, tell our listening audience one small word. Tell us about the book.
Well, the book is a memoir, and the main character is, of course, myself. The main character is called Frankie. And it's about Frankie's experiences through her life up until she's 50 years old. Mm-hmm. And we meet her right at the beginning of the book when she's on a social work placement. She's training to be a social worker. She's been running a day centre for older people for some time, and she wants to learn more about the job she does and about the people she serves. So she's actually working within a learning disability social work team. And at 50 years old, of course, she's quite much older than the other team members, but she's made welcome, and she has to take on some clients. And because it's a learning disability team, all her clients will have a learning disability. Mm-hmm. And one of the clients that she has is a middle-aged woman married to a rather older man. And And the case is going quite well. And Gloria has visited and spoken to the lady and man having a few problems. It all went well until one day when Frankie received a phone call from the couple's two grown-up daughters, well, one of them, and that person, that young woman, disclosed that her father had sexually abused her and her sister when they were children. And Frankie listens, takes it on board, feels a bit shaken, but writes it in the files, does all the things she has to do,
Mm-hmm.
and she's fine. It comes to the time where she has to go and visit her client, so off she goes. But when she gets the clients out, and so she is forced to spend a little time with the client's husband chatting. And whilst they're chatting, suddenly she has a flashback. And it's a flashback to her childhood when her father sexually and physically abused her. And suddenly this elderly man morphs into her father, and she really, really wants to just strangle him. She finding it really hard to stop herself. It's that strong an emotion. And somehow she manages to make excuses and get out of the house, and get back to the office, where she finds her very kind team leader there, who really advises that she goes through a series of counselling sessions to enable her to deal with her baggage, because otherwise she won't be able to deal with other people's.
Absolutely.
So she does this, and throughout this series of counselling, lots of memories come up, which are described in the book. And by the time she's finished the counselling, she feels so much better. But what it does, it triggers some dreams, and dreams about her time after she was 14, because when she was 14, that's when she stopped the abuse. And after that, she appeared to have a normal life. She was married to a second husband, had 3 children, was working in the science field, and then moved on to working in social care. Nothing really unusual about that. But things started to crop up in her dreams. And throughout these dreams, she went and talked to her team manager with them, who helped to analyse them and learn about herself more. And she started to understand why promiscuity had featured so highly in her life, and how it had affected her sex life within her marriages. Mm-hmm. And also, she started to understand why she experienced such difficulties in parenting, and how that had led to her repeatedly failing her children, for which she felt really guilty. She came to see that her sort of low self-worth or self-esteem had led her to be so critical that she hated herself, and she learned to forgive herself for the mistakes that she'd made. And so by the end of this book, having gone through the counselling and gone through the dreams and the analysis of the dreams, she gains victory. And she ends her placement ready and happy to go forward to get her qualification to be a social worker. So the book basically goes through her experiences as a child, and right until the time she was 50 when all this happened.
Wow. Gloria, first and foremost, thank you so much for that synopsis. I didn't realize that this was a fictional narrative based on realistic experiences, and I wasn't even aware of that. First and foremost, before I go any farther, I always love when I have authors that are brave enough to really utilize personal experiences in their narratives that way, because I know, again, being an artist myself, a lot of times it is very difficult to hold that mirror up and show certain aspects of your life and of yourself. It takes so much bravery to be able to actually formulate that and to be able to want to showcase that side to the world, where so many people, myself included, a lot of times I shy away from that, right, and hide from that, because I want to give this impression of myself rather than allowing that transparency. So that, first and foremost, it's commendable and will ultimately help so many people, right?
And that's why I wrote it. That is exactly why I wrote it. My main aim was to help people who are adults and had experienced child abuse when they were little, and now are trying to get through the remnants of that and to survive, and to show them. I wanted to show them that you can do it. You can do it, because when you're on that journey, often it feels hopeless. And I just I like to turn negative situations into positive ones. That's what I've learned in my life. That's
Absolutely.
the only way to cope. And so I wanted to help other people to do that. And at the same time, I wanted to get it off my chest. I wanted to be able to put all those memories to one side and forget them, and so that they were no longer real. And I succeeded in that. A painful journey, but afterwards, it made such a difference. I felt so light, so free from all that.
Absolutely. Again, it's something that's not easy to acknowledge in the moment, but once you do it, the only way to get through it is to go through it, right? And to really process it and work your way through it. Next question that we want to go into is the title of the book, One Small Word.
Okay. Well, when I was a child, and when all this was happening, especially at the time, I'm now in my 70s, so especially in the time when I was a child, nobody talked about such things as child abuse, especially familial child abuse. And if you told anybody, they wouldn't believe you. So you didn't. And not only that, an abuser always blackmails his victim or her victim into keeping quiet for fear that something might happen to them. So
Absolutely.
For me, it was, if you say anything to anybody, then you'll be taken away and put in a children's home, which was a scary thing for a little child. It all started when I was, well, before I was 3. But anyway, so I went through my life. At first, I have to admit, I didn't know this wasn't normal. You don't.
Of course, yeah.
An abuser tends to be sheltering you, keeping you from being with especially other adults, and sort of not letting you go and join in the normal things that children and young people join in for fear that they might be found out. But so I suffered it, and honestly didn't know what to do until I got to 14. And at 14, I thought, I can't let this go on because I'm in danger here. I could end up getting pregnant because things had escalated that far. And so the next time he made advances towards me, I just said no. And that is the one small word, no. And it's only a small word, but it stopped the abuse. But of course, after that, the guilt kicked in because I thought, well, I could have said no years ago. And it had not occurred to me that I could say no because I was too frightened. But that's my one small word. And that was the turning point. And the word no is something that a lot of people find difficult to say in all realms of life. But actually, it's an important word. And it's been useful to me since then, since I was 50, because as you go on through life, especially if you've been abused once, so you somehow seem to be a magnet to abusers in all sorts of situations. And that word no has helped me through many a difficult time since I was 50 and right up to the present, which is all written in my sequel to One Small Word.
You know, really quick, and that's going to be the perfect segue to go into, you know, your sequel there. Before we go, I'm just going to take a quick pause. Guys, listen, we're here on the line with Gloria Eveleigh discussing her book, One Small Word. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, but really to get the most impact from the book and also purchasing the book, go directly to her website, gloriaeveleigh.com. You'll be able to purchase the book there, gain more information not only on the book but also on her. Definitely do yourself a favor and visit this website. A perfect segue. Thank you so much. This is so impactful. This is so incredible hearing you talk about your journey in your story that way. And now that title, I mean, the title, again, doing my research, I knew what the book was about, right? I knew a little bit about the circumstances covered in the book. And One Small Word, I knew it had to have some big significance related to the book, but now hearing you talk about that and hearing you talk about your experience in no being that one small word, which, you know, again, yes, it's a small word, but it sometimes the burden of that word or the heaviness of that word can take anything but small. But as we segue into the next title that you already started to go into, which is the sequel to One Small Word, the title of that book is No. Right? And I can assume, I think, where this next book is going just from that title and of course, the description that you gave previously. Talk to our listening audience about No, the sequel to One Small Word.
Well, that book is the story again of Frankie, who's me, and goes through her life after she finished her social work training and all the problems she came across. The fact that she had, when her father was abusing her as a child, she had learned that to prove you love someone, you have to have sex. And that's the message that gets through to a child. They have low self-esteem and they can't believe that anybody loves them. Mm-hmm. So Frankie, as she goes on in life, makes some bad mistakes. Her parents initially forced her to marry someone who she'd been out with for a long time, going out with for a long time, but she didn't want to marry. But the parents was a dysfunctional family, no doubt about it, and they didn't like the responsibility of their children as they grew up. So they pushed Frankie to get married. That marriage was not a happy marriage. It was on the surface, but not for Frankie, because there was little emotion in that marriage, let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. And her husband had a mother who was so domineering and so belittling. And so she had an affair. And that affair ended up when she became pregnant, not knowing whether the child was her husband's or her lover.
Wow.
And at that time, she decided she wasn't going to carry on with her lover because the child deserved a good life. So she tried to make something of her marriage, but things got no better emotionally, and she ended up having another affair. The affair was with the husband of a very close friend. And that was very difficult and very awkward. But in the end, when she got pregnant again, she decided that she would have to tell her present husband, and he wanted to bring the child up as his own, but that didn't work. The emotions weren't there. He was very good to the child. Eventually, she married a second husband, and he was the man of her dreams. She was absolutely in love. That all the emotions were there, and he was so lovely to her. She was very, very happy until the time she found out he'd had an affair. and that
Oh
hit her,
no.
smashed her to the ground. You can imagine.
Yes, of course.
Um, but she got up and kept going, and made that marriage work. But of course, then there was the situation of the effect on the children.
Mm-hmm.
Two of the children were her second husbands, but the one child was her first husband's, and there was all sort of difficulties because that child was very rebellious. So she was trying to cope with a lot. She and her new husband were trying to cope with a lot. But then at work, she worked for social services, and she worked as in. She set up their safeguarding structure. She worked with protecting vulnerable adults from abuse. But in social services, particularly in this local authority, there was a great deal of bullying, and she went through some terrible times when she was bullied by her manager and alongside some other of her teammates, and that was horrific, a horrific experience. And then her husband had a stroke, a really bad stroke. So she was pulled between staying at this job where she was being bullied, but she was close to home, so she could get to her husband, or moving to somewhere else. And in the end, she could stand it no longer, and she had to move to a different local authority. Sort of, instead of 5 minutes to drive away, it was more like sort of 3/4 of an hour to an hour's drive away. So she was continually worried about her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And she was kind of bullied again when she was at her new job. She was taken advantage of, and she had a breakdown because basically she was doing the job of 12 people at least.
Mm-hmm.
When she left, they replaced her with 12 people. So it was a pretty rough life. But her husband's death also was pretty rough. He had another stroke, and she coped with that. She was voted on to be on her local parish council. She was bullied there by the parish clerk, and all through that time while her husband was dying, and in the end, she walked away from that, I must say. So basically, it sort of takes it finishes on a positive note, which I won't go on about now, but what it does is it was written to show that people who have been abused, yes, they can get the victory, but at the same time be ready, because bullies are everywhere, abusers are everywhere, and they sense some sort of vulnerability in someone who has been a victim, even if they've had the victory, and this will help them. And the word no was what Frankie needed all through her life up until this present point. Now she's retired and isn't part of the council and is enjoying life writing.
Gloria, this is such an amazing journey that you've been able to put together for us. And guys, listen, you have to get out there and get this book. I mean, if this interview hasn't moved you, pinch yourself. Right, you gotta get your pulse checked. This is so incredible, and as Gloria has stated, so much adversity that this character faces, but ultimately at the end of the day, she perseveres, and she gets through it all, and it is a happy ending, and that is so powerful and really correlates with just life. I mean, regardless of the specific circumstances, maybe you haven't gone through that particular experience yourself, but listen, I can almost guarantee it. If life hasn't thrown you a curveball or given you some type of adversity, buckle in, because it's gonna happen. And really, the underlying message that Gloria just really talked to us about is it's all about perseverance in the face of adversity, and it does get better. You can weather out the storm. You can push through. It's not an easy road. It might not be the quickest road, but you can push through and you can make it through that. So again, on the line here with Gloria Eveleigh. We just finished discussing her book, One Small Word. Then we went briefly into her sequel, No, the sequel to One Small Word. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but again, go directly to her personal website for the best experience possible. That's going to be gloriaeveleigh.com. Now, as we transition, because I would feel remiss if we didn't highlight these other books that you've written. Guys, that's not all. I mean, if those two narratives there weren't incredible enough, and such an amazing feat to embark upon, there, Gloria has written another 30 books. 30. That's right. That's not a mistake. That is correct. 30 books. But that's not even it. It's going to be 30 books in an entire canon of 42. So there's going to be a lot more to come. And they're all children's books, right? And it's amazing because the children's books that she's written are very specific and educational in terms of learning how to read. So really quickly, because again, we don't want to take too much away from One Small Word. That was the highlight of this interview. That was really what brought us here today. But Gloria, talk to us about your children's books that you've also written.
Okay, just very quickly, children learn to read by learning phonics sounds, phonetic sounds. And in a particular system called Jolly Phonics, they learn 42 sounds. And by that time, they can read very fluently. Each of my books, those 42 books are divided into 7 groups. And each of my books, and there's 6 books in each group, each of my books focuses on an individual phonics sound. And that sound is highlighted throughout the book. And I do my own illustrations. And each book is illustrated with very bright stories that will attract little children. So when parents start to read to their children, they can read these books. The child can get the gist from the picture and also see the shape of the sound, because the sound is made by either one letter or 2, sometimes 2 so far anyway. And they will learn to repeat after their parents the sound that makes. And so in a fun way and an engaging story, they learn the phonics sounds one book after another until after they've read the first 6 books, or after they've had the first 6 books read to them and learned the sounds, they should be able to read a basic sentence. So it's really fun. Get them reading early, and if a child can read early, they've got access to all sorts of other things like the web that they can read and learn from. And that I wanted to just help the education of children.
Absolutely. That it sounds incredible. And again, such an amazing feat that you're taking in terms of writing 42 books, and 30 of which are already completed. So, guys, whether you have kids or you know someone that does, such an amazing gift for any child to embark upon and really start their intellectual journey and their educational journey. This has been absolutely, enlightening, inspirational. This is by far one of the best interviews I've done. Gloria, this is absolutely so impactful. The book that you brought to our table, of course, that we started off with, One Small Word. As I said before, I commend you what you've embarked upon and really didn't shy away from. It's absolutely incredible, and you deserve so much praise for that. It's absolutely wonderful. Guys, get out to her website, gloriaeveleigh.com. Pick up your copy of One Small Word. Look into the sequel, No, to One Small Word. And as we've stated before, if you have any children or you know people that have any children, go and look into her children's books as well. So much to offer. Gloria, thank you again for being with us on People of Distinction. We truly appreciated you bringing all of these books to our table.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much. You're a good interviewer because you made me feel relaxed, and thank you for that.